Yeah, sorry. Oh, the air conditioning is, I turned it on when I came in, the windows were open, so thank you for being here, and I'm just gonna talk a little bit about what the missions are that we do. I'm gonna talk a little bit about history, a little bit about what the vision and mission and core values are, and then who we are and how we as program, what are our opportunities to be involved. So, in 1965, they started talking about merging or having a joint action and a possible merger of administrations of agencies between the two churches. And in 1967, they actually opened their first Southern Asia office and shared staff. In 68, they opened a joint office for Latin America. It was discontinued in 1971. I do not know the exact reason for that. My guess would be that it may have become unsafe for them to keep that in the early 70s. In 1980, the Middle East office was established, and in 1987, they looked at that Southern Asia office that they had opened back in 67, as well as a Middle East office, and said, kind of, how are they working? How is this whole process? In 1980, and that was in anticipation of 1989, when the UCC General Synod, which meets every 2 years, and in that same 2-year period, the Christian Church Disciples of Christ has their General Assembly. So, jumping ahead to this year, our General Synod was in Baltimore, and about a week later, their General Assembly was in Indianapolis. And our UCC headquarters are here in downtown Cleveland, and DOC is in Indianapolis. That's their home. So they agreed in 1989 that they would establish an ecumenical partnership. And they had shared staff in both New York, which was where the UCC offices were at the time, and Indianapolis. And the joint ministry in Africa established a division of overseas ministries, known as DON, and the United Church Board for World Ministries, which was the UCC branch of that, and they began working cooperatively. In 1990, the cooperative ministry began in East Asia and the Pacific. So we had Southern Asia, they opened East Asia and the Pacific, and they began some long-range planning of the two boards for common ministry for the future. In 92, they established the mission personnel office, established one executive and shared staff in both Indianapolis and New York. And the Division of Overseas Ministries, that colleague joined the World Ministries in the U.S. And in an effort to do some more combining and gather more information and resources, the United Church Board of Wider Ministries, the UCC office, looked at the DOC regions and congregations and started to develop a special partner relationship with them. It was really, they continued to establish various offices, consolidating staff, working together. In 1995, the two boards voted to create a common global ministries board. it was in that year, so in 1995, that both Synod and General Assembly affirmed the formation of the Common Law Ministries. So January 1st, 1996, that board came into existence. And in 2000, Wider Church Ministries, out of that board, came into being. And it was when the UCC moved to Cleveland in 2000. So the New York office was closed, but program offices moved to Cleveland, which still exist. Dr. James Luce, Reverend Dr. James Luce, is the person in charge of that for the UCC. And I'll talk a little bit about that. So Global Ministries came up with this vision, mission, and core values. And the vision is that all of God's people and creation share in God's abundant life. Both the UCC and DOC have this all shall be one idea, this unity, and so that is seen then in the vision statement. And the mission is to receive and share the good news of Jesus Christ by joining with global and local partners to work for justice, reconciliation, and peace. The core values are community, mutuality, justice, peace, and presence. So in community, it is building interdependence and unity among all of God's children. So they do that by working with international partners to find new ways to nourish each other's ministries. So I'll talk a little bit more about this in a few minutes, but what is somewhat unique to the DOC, or very unique to the DOC and the UCC and to Global Ministries, is we don't go anywhere that we are not invited. So whereas other missions may show up and say, you need to be saved, Global Ministries does not show up unless they are invited and there is a specific need for that. And that's really integral in creating that community. If you go in and tell people you're broken and we're here to fix you, that can oftentimes create much of a sense of community.
That's a major shift from 100 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and even in UCC history, it's showing up in Hawaii. So, and saying, we're here to save you. Mutuality, walking in hope with others in God's mission. So, going along with that idea is sharing instead of guiding, listening instead of lecturing. So, going into what is it that your needs are, and sharing what we might have to offer to you, but not telling you that that's what you need. And offer support of each community's unique projects and programs. They say this is what we're trying to do. And in turn, then, the international partners support working with U.S. Justice, living out God's radical love by confronting powers that deny the fullness of life and the integrity of creation. And we do that through advocacy, really empowering those people so that we don't create a sense of dependence, but a sense of them having that authority after we leave. It may be through statements, it may be through Bible studies. If you have ever been, or if you have never been to a General Synod, we frequently will pass denominational resolutions, and that is also true for the DOC, that say we do not think that South Africa or any African nation should be killing people because of homosexuality. So we will make these statements that simply by making the statements and then putting action behind giving them information on how to better advocate for themselves. Peace is another core value, embodying and reconciling relationships with God, humanity, and creation. So you will also hear those resolutions that talk about caring for the earth and caring for God's creation. I know that at this synod, there was something passed about boycotting Wendy's because of how little they paid or how unwilling they were to pay an increase so that tomato farmers could give their workers a 1-cent raise. So those types of things that it's a new way to engage and goes back to that justice work that I talked about. And then presence, manifesting God's love by living in intentional, committed relationships. So we aren't just throwing money at these problems or these issues that they come to us about, but we are sending people to go and to listen and to learn, and willingness to share personally in their times of challenge and of joy, and really embody that presence of God, that they are not alone in these struggles. So all of those core values are played out in a variety of ways, and part of how we do that is by indeed sending people there. So there are 2 co-executives, one from the DOC and one from the UCC, as I said, Reverend Dr. James Moose, who actually is a member at Plymouth Congregation over in Shaker, and Reverend Julia Brown Caribou, who is located in Indianapolis for the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. Current missionaries usually serve a 3 to 4 year term. So this isn't they're there for their lifetime kind of thing. They serve, they listen, they help with the project, they pull back out, they empower, they utilize all of those core values, and then leave that. So it's really very project oriented. I'm not going to read all of, you can read the names of the people, but just at the most recent General Assembly, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, so 10 new people that were commissioned, and they are co-workers to the assembly. So one person is going to Columbia. There is in here, there were a couple of, so Lauren McGrail they have re-upped her. So she is, or he, I'm assuming is he is returning to YMCA in Palestine. And there is somebody going to serve at a seminary in Indonesia. And maybe it's ringing a bell, so I think they may have also. Nope. Oh yes, John and Karen, or at least this only says Karen, but my guess is they may have been commissioned at different times. So and she is recommissioned to the Organization of African Instituted Churches. So while we say they serve 3 to 4 year terms, obviously they can be recommissioned to those, so they don't necessarily have to be after that. A new commissioning in Ghana, and a new commissioning in Haiti, and then they commissioned an intern at the most recent General Assembly. So you really, in looking at these, we are in lots of different places, and not always necessarily UCC or DOC. You have somebody from the Global Sarang Foundation of the Presbyterian Church. So that's a prime example of, we need some additional help. Will you send someone to help us? And looking at what is it that they are wanting to do, and does it meet our core values and our mission, our vision? So then all of that's going on out in the larger church. How do we hear, what are our possibilities? And you may be able to speak, and forgive me, you may be able to speak on what mission empowerment. Christy, what mission empowerment is doing?
Sure.
Yeah.
At the end.
Sure, you can say that at the end. I'll talk a little bit about what some of the possibilities are, and then you can talk a little bit about what mission empowerment is doing. So being a global mission church, by doing that, we would get notification of engagement opportunities to do webinars with global ministry staff. We could potentially host someone, mission personnel, to come and speak. And they would provide us resources to connect congregations with mission personnel and partners. So that might be sending letters of support, hearing what they are doing there. There is also an opportunity to do child and elder sponsorship programs. So it provides services that create opportunities and affirm dignity. So if for a child, it might support them getting education. It might support them not having to work for the family, but having that income so that they could attend school. And what I found very interesting in doing the research for this was that 100% of the gift is used for the child or elder that can sponsor. There is not administrative costs associated with that. And then church-to-church partnerships, which builds close relationships with missionaries through covenanted relationships, gives possible opportunities to actually get to go visit those churches where the work is being done. Perhaps doing a Bible study here, knowing that they're doing a Bible study there of the same thing, and having that relationship even from a distance. And then individual and group correspondence. And then the justice and advocacy, I mentioned the one that just got passed through General Synod, but the Middle East initiatives that have happened. An advocacy program called Breaking the Silence, specifically global warming and the integrity of creation, global poverty and the economy of God, that idea of having enough and not living in scarcity, and global conflict and peacemaking, global human rights and community building. Again, looking at gender working in healthcare, that there is kind of this sense of HIV/AIDS is a chronic disease. But it's been created as a chronic disease in the United States because of the access to medications. And there are still so many in Africa that don't have that access. So it remains a global health issue. And then the last way is special giving opportunities. Say we're going to collect a special offering and 100, if you sent that in as, with that special offering is taken, 100% of the gift is used as designated without administrative fees. And it can be a one-time special giving. You want to give in honor of someone at Christmas or for a birthday, or you can give in memory, and it can be every year on the anniversary of that person's death that it is given, or a monthly. And I included the website if you want to kind of look more at what's going on there and what kinds of things local businesses is doing. But Christine, you can talk a little bit about what Mission Empowerment does with local ministries.
Sure. I can't speak as much to local ministries,
Okay.
but in general, we sort of oversee kind of the big mission initiatives that Pilgrim undertakes. So we don't necessarily, like, the board doesn't necessarily do all of the work. Like, for example, the food pantry garden that's up in Chess Henderson mostly takes on the work of keeping that running, and the food pantry in particular with a lot of other volunteers keep that running. But we sort of, they fall under our umbrella of things that I am and administer. On top of that, we help, we look at our participation in greater Cleveland congregations, which is an advocacy social justice consortium of congregations in the area. We administer some funds to some local organizations that help people, like Edmund House, there's one house, and also this. So it's kind of a lot of pride, our participation in pride, again, a community that helps organize that. So that's kind of the gist.
Okay.
I'm sure I'm forgetting something.
And you know, I think, and you, Russ, you know, made it is interesting and it is unique that we don't go where we're not invited. And that's
How it is monitoring that too.
it is the organizations. So these organizations, so like, yes,
Government.
the government doesn't do the inviting. No. So it is, you know, it is the Evangelical Church of West Heath that says we need some help, or the Intercultural Research and Studies Institute. Now, what I don't know is how do they know to come to us? Like, how is it? What do we do in terms of letting them know? We might have people that can help you. But, you know, there's much about how people know things that are out there that I don't always know and understand. So, in some way, it may be word of mouth, it may be those types of organizations or those churches that are functioning, the privileges where they are being persecuted, that there is that network of how do we get help? But it is not the government, it is the individual organizations that do the inviting. And the Moravian Church, there is some history with DOC and the Moravian Church. And so that I had a classmate who had come to the United States, had immigrated, and he was So there have been relationships with these people. I know, that Reverend Dr. Ruth has had relationships with people in Timor, East Timor, for decades. Yeah, and so, you know, again, if you develop those relationships, but yeah, good question. They are not, it is not the government who runs it, it is these individual organizations. So, you know, it's nice to kind of remember that, well, here we are as Pilgrim, and we're part of the community, and we're part of the Western Reserve East Ohio Association, and that is part of the Ohio Conference, that is part of the UCC, that even within the United States, there is we are part of something that is bigger, in collaboration with the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, that started back in the 60s in establishing those offices. Are there other questions?
Who financially supports the mission? Is there where?
I can't definitively answer that question, but I know certainly the people doing the asking have to have some investment in supporting, but then the wider church also by those special offerings, by that when we take a global ministries, take up an offering for global ministries, that supports who, and then for the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, they also then take up special offerings. They have mission Sundays in which the offering that Sunday is designated for. So it is through the two joint denominations that do that.
Is there anything else that comes from
Yes. Yes, and it is, yes, because we support the co-executives. So Jim is on national staff, and this program is supported through. It is not only by special offering. Is that what you're asking?
Essentially,
It's part of the budget.
Part of the
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Yeah.
On the things that you said, like the child geriatric support, that there's no administrative fees to that, how is that possible? How is if you gave money to this, how does it get to that person without some of the administrative?
Because there is money budgeted for each of the denominations to support the administrative costs. Yep.
That's impressive.
Exactly. So, yeah, because the United Church of Christ and the Christian Church Disciples of Christ have said this is something we're going to support, that the administrative costs get covered by that budget.
What exactly does that mean? Like, if like sponsorship of a child or?
I will encourage you to go to the website.
Would that be on the website?
It is on the website.
Great, yeah.
And
Okay.
it was not difficult to find. It was
Okay.
pretty easily navigatable
Okay.
website. I was pretty impressed
Great.
with being able to find things. But yeah, it does tell you more about
Yeah.
that and what it can support.
Okay. Thanks.
And the global ministries is focused on South.
Correct. But then they, you know, like I said, but then they are doing things, on that site is a video of one of the missionaries who talks about then what they sent back, just in terms of information and, you know, not financial, because obviously we're supporting them financially, but what it is, it might be that some of these seminaries are then sending graduates to be able to serve underserved populations in the United States or things like that. So a variety of ways that they then in turn, it may be through, through prayer, through other ways of supporting, but that they do offer that support back.
So this is the successor to those early efforts that the church made.
Yeah, absolutely. In a very different way. And, I think that sometimes we learn the hard way of doing things wrong, and say, oh, that didn't work so well, and we didn't do that very well. But yes, this is kind of what we learned from going into Hawaii and really, as UCC. And I will admit to not knowing. My guess is that the DOC made similar errors. I can't speak totally